I'm Andrew Optimisey, and this is SEO in 2025.
Andrew, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
Get hold of your domains. I still come across way too many businesses that have domains they've forgotten about, subdomains they set up and then left, domains that the CEO bought on a whim over a weekend, and all that kind of stuff. And just, it can be quite problematic for you, for your SEO efforts.
So what is get holding? Get holding? Get hold of all of your domains, actually. Because I was thinking the word controlling for some reason, actually. But getting hold of all your domains, does that mean just keeping them all in one place?
Yes. So like finding out that exhaustive list of how many domains the business owns. And for some businesses, it's really straightforward. You own davidbain.com. That's it.
It took me a while to get that one. Tell me about it.
Nothing else. I never bought .co.uk. I didn't buy .org. I didn't buy dbain. I didn't buy, Dave Bain or any other variations thereof. And it's all straightforward and that's fine. But even then, I've come across businesses where they'll have a subdomain set up. So they'll have staging.davidbain.com because that's where they put their staging site and they mess around with it. And that's their sandbox where they play with things. And you can find that actually that's been indexed and Google's picked that up, or Google's picked up tests.davidbain.com, or all these other kind of things that your developers have been messing around with in the background, probably without even telling anybody. And then Google, being the voracious crawler that it is, has found them all and is getting slightly confused about which is which and which belongs to which. So having that overall view of how many domains have you got? How many subdomains have you got? What is on all of them is really important, I think.
So who should be responsible for your domains?
I would say the SEO, of course, because I'm the SEO, right? The SEO should know about everything. I don't think it really matters. It shouldn't be an individual. It should be down to an organization, because I've had this in the past where there'd been one particular person in, say, the IT team, who is the person that looked after all the domains, all the purchases, all the renewals, all that kind of stuff. And then they leave and they take all that information with them. So it needs to be in a kind of centralized place where, should anybody need to, they can have a look at the domains that the business owns, like a spreadsheet, a list, a post-it note stuck on the fridge, whatever it is. As long as there is an updated place that people can find all that information, that's fine. I'm not precious about who owns it.
Do you have any preference? It was interesting, your idea, your example of the staging subdomain. Do you have any preference with regards to using subdomains on the actual domain for creating a staging site?
I'm okay with that. I think, again, it can be a convenience thing for the developers. And then when they're porting stuff across, if they're doing it all in the same domain, that makes their lives easier. But what I would suggest is password protecting it. Google doesn't type passwords. So if you have stuff that you want to build and hide away from things that you don't really want Google to, you can look at robots text and no index and all these kind of things to deter robots. But often the most straightforward and simplest thing is stick a password on it. Even if the password is password 123, please don't use that. But even if it is that, crawlers don't type passwords. So instantly you block them from getting into those sites. So then you have a staging site set up where you want to mess with things, or we're thinking about changing the colors, changing the templates, moving things around. Great, fine. Do it on staging. If that makes your life easier, the devs, say, "Oh, can we do it on this?" Yes, absolutely. Please password protect it so the crawlers don't find it. Go to your heart's content.
So I remember many moons ago having a problem with having the domain name registered on the same service that I use for web hosting. And there was an issue with perceived spam, and my domain name and my web hosting were both locked, and I couldn't even point the domain name somewhere else. So I guess that could be a reason for never having your domain name registered under the same provider as your web host. Are there other reasons for that? Would you do that?
It's eggs in a basket, isn't it? If you put all your eggs in one basket, it's a single point of failure. So if you have something as critical as your business, email is all on the same domain, and if you lose that domain, huge fundamental things are going to go wrong with your business, and it's going to cost you enormous amounts of money to fix it, then maybe putting all those things in one basket is probably not a good idea.
So that's another interesting example, email on the same domain name as well. Are you generally better off actually using a different domain name address for your corporate email?
I tend to recommend against that just because it's confusing for that brand. Like, so if you have your email address and you meet somebody at an event and you're saying, oh, my email address is optimisey.com, Andrew at optimisey.com, whatever it is. And then your actual website lives on optimizeyseo.com. Now you've given that person two things to remember. Do they remember your web address or do they remember your email address? And if they send an email to the one that's the domain where the email is, and what happens when they go to the wrong one, kind of thing. And you can kind of cover that with like forwarding rules or whatever it is, or 301s if that's your domain. But I would suggest for brand consistency, and again, this is like one of your things I know you ask about, is how does SEO fit with the other marketing elements? And I think, branding is important, right? So having that single place where everybody knows that something, optimisey.com is me. A email address or whatever it is that goes with that, then that's great. So I think that kind of consistency can be really helpful.
So when do you know when to buy a new domain, and when should you build a project on an existing domain?
I think, I'm trying to avoid saying it depends, right? Because that's the stock SEO answer for everything. So that's one of the things where I've come across this in the past, where I'll be working with a client who specializes in one area. And so the example I always use is like DJ. So they're a wedding DJ and they're doing brilliantly with wedding DJing and they're getting loads of business, but they actually quite want to expand out into children's birthday parties. So they're thinking, well, maybe I'm going to buy, I've got, Andrew's a great DJ.com, but I'm thinking of also buying Andrew's a great kids party DJ.com. And, what should I do, and build up a whole new separate thing there? My recommendation for that is it needs to be really quite a fundamentally different business for you to think about setting up a different domain. If you're looking for a DJ, there's going to be certain things that you are interested in as a customer, whether they're a wedding DJ or a birthday DJ or a kids DJ or whatever it is. You want to know, are they reliable? Have they got good testimonials? Where are they based? How much does it cost? All those things are relevant whether you're, whatever the DJ purpose you're looking for. So I think with those kind of things, I'd recommend keeping it in one place. You can then start using, subfolders and branding out your services and things beyond that. But building another whole domain, Google treats new domains as new domains, funnily. It doesn't have any idea or any credibility behind that domain. So you're basically starting from scratch. Whereas if you build on top of what you've already got, then you're already like consolidating those ranking signals and that idea of, okay, this person works in music. Like, if the DJ is then thinking about expanding into carpentry, sure, that's a whole separate thing. There's probably not going to be a great deal of overlap there. Maybe you want to buy a separate domain for that.
Got you. So essentially it's to do with topical authority. So if you can extend what you've got onto the new project, then go for it. Absolutely create a folder and perhaps create the new project on that. But if not, if you're going from music to carpentry as per your example, perhaps not.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, so one of the things that, the reasons that I wanted to talk about this example is the ways that I've seen it come up is through these, particularly small businesses starting out, and they start in a really specialist area and then they start to grow very quickly, which is great for that business. But then, maybe they think, oh, well, that original brand name, that original domain name that we had doesn't quite cover the services that we offer now. We want to expand out. We used to just be music DJs, but now we're into, equipment rentals and venue hire and all these kind of things. So we're going to rebrand and we're going to move on to this new domain. And they abandon all that kind of equity they built in that domain and let it drop. Or they just park it or whatever, or don't redirect it, whatever, all those kind of things. And that is a real missed opportunity. So I understand again, like, SEO is not the be all and end all for the branding part of their company and the marketing team. Maybe they think that, big rebrand is necessary, but don't let those domains drop. I'm not going to name names, but I've worked with a big financial company in the past who had done this kind of thing, and they'd expanded out very quickly. They'd gone into new markets. They'd changed their domains. They'd started to buy domains in some South American countries where they were expanding, and then they kind of quickly retracted back, and they just left a whole bunch, like 7, 8, 9 different domains that they bought, and they'd let them all lapse. And there are, nefarious people out there who will quite happily hoover up all your spare domains and do nefarious things with them. So lots of these domains have been picked up by pills, porn and poker things. Now they were then still branded with this financial company's branding, and the name was in the URL. Yeah. But they were selling things that were very much not those financial products and those kind of associations. It wasn't great. And it was problematic for them. Like, beyond SEO, it's problematic for them in terms of then like their brand equity. Those kind of people associating pills, porn and poker with that company is not really where the brand and the marketing team wanted it to be.
So generally, if you've got even hundreds of domain names in relation to your brand, keep them registered and forward them to your main brand.com or whatever domain name you'd never actually let them go at all, even if you're actually not actively using them.
Definitely park them. And if they've ever had anything on them, then you should probably be redirecting them to the next equivalent, nearest best match, as it were. But yeah, you don't necessarily have to do anything with them at all. You don't have to redirect them. You can, as long as you own them, and so nobody else can do anything with them, that's okay. So the obvious question to that is, well, how far should I go? Should I buy the .com? Should I buy the .biz? Should I buy the .co.uk and the .org and you can kind of go crazy to an extent with that kind of stuff. So my only other advice around this kind of stuff is that sort of, again, more broader marketing. Think about your kind of copyright and your trademarks. So if you have those kind of, if somebody then does pick up the .biz on your brand name, that you can then pursue them through other means and be a bit like, well, actually, you probably shouldn't be using that. That's my copyright, and make them take it down.
So what do you do if you have let an old domain name expire and you realize there was probably a mistake? Is there any way to go back?
Yeah, some of them you can go back. So again, if you've got trademarks and all those kind of copyright things set up, then you can pursue it through that way. You can go through the ICANN register, and if you can prove that you used to own it and you kind of let it lapse by mistake, and the person that's picked it up has been doing nefarious things with it and kind of piggybacking off your credibility, then there are ways that you can get it back. It's extremely difficult, long-winded, involves lawyers, and can get very expensive. So if you can spend that £30 just to renew that domain and avoid all that hassle, then that's one of the reasons I'm recommending it. But it is possible to get them back.
So when registering a new domain, is .com always preferable, or does it depend on the country that you happen to be in?
I think it depends on where you're targeting and stuff as well. Like I think, .com is still gives you that kind of air of credibility. It's like, and it's kind of still rolls off the tongue when you're like, oh, right, is it, businessname.com or is it .co.uk, whatever. Lots of people will assume .com. And that kind of gives you that flexibility. If you start with the .co.uk and then you find that actually you've got a huge audience in the US or in Canada or Australia or France or wherever it is, then that kind of .co.uk may sort of count against you a little bit. So it depends on what kind of audiences you're targeting, where you want to go with that business.
And that probably leads me up to asking about brand in relation to domain names. So if you're starting a new project or new business, what's more important, being able to get the .com or being able to choose the brand and not be dissuaded by the fact that you can't actually get the .com?
Yeah, so I think this is another really big it depends kind of thing. So from an SEO point of view, then sure, I would say, right, get the .com, ditch your brilliant brand idea, like just choose a different name that you can get the .com for. But it goes way beyond that kind of stuff, right? And I think there are so many kind of, it depends on kind of things. So I had a conversation with somebody recently who was like, oh, I found, this .com that I can get, but it's got a hyphen in it. It is david-bain.com. Should I use that? I can get the .com, but then and my first question was, well, who's got the .com? If the person that owns davidbain.com is your direct competitor and they're doing very similar things to you and they sell the same stuff as you and they're in that same kind of industry, then you might run into problems. Because, every time you do a big marketing push, every time somebody makes a mistake and mistypes your URL, you're literally sending customers to your competitor. If, davidbain.com is parked by a competitor but not used, or fine, they're in carpentry and you're in music, then sure, maybe that's not going to be so much of a problem. But yeah, from an SEO point of view, I would still suggest that if you can get a nice .com that rolls off the tongue very easily, then that would still be my suggestion.
And what about changing domains after a while? What if 5 years ago, I just couldn't get the .com and I just went for building a website on david-bain.com, but now I've got it. Is it worthwhile changing the domain name to the new domain name I've got? Because I know certainly Majestic, I've gone through something similar. 5-10 years ago, it was majesticSEO.com. Now it's majestic.com.
Yeah, again, with that kind of stuff, then it depends. It depends on what kind of equity you've built up. It depends, how much branding stuff you've got out there. If you've still got posters, radio ads, TV ads, and things running with your old domain name in, then that's going to be a problem. I worked with a company that, again, had a big sort of name change, and a lot of their YouTube videos were still referencing the old domain name at the end. The kind of end plate was olddomainname.com. And it's like, okay, well, if you're going to change this, you need to go back and update all those YouTube videos, because they were still getting tens of thousands of views every day on these videos. And every time at the end, they were then pushing people to the old domain name. Not ideal. It was the old branding, like the brand police were upset about it, all those kind of things as well. So if you are going to go through those kind of changes, then it's not a small undertaking. It can be a lot of work. It can be a lot of work for the development team. There's a lot of work to do in terms of SEO, because it is effectively a domain migration. You might need to then rebrand everything, all that kind of stock you've got upstairs with pens and t-shirts and whatever branding things you've got that have all the old domain names printed on them. You're basically going to make them useless overnight. So there's lots of other things to consider beyond SEO.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest, focusing on their domain strategy in 2025?
Stop freaking out about AI. It's changing so fast all the time. I think lots of people are losing their minds about AI. And I think that it's changing so fast that wherever you start going with AI now, and if you build your house on this, you're building it on sand. So it's going to change a lot over the next few months. So I would suggest stop freaking out about the shiny new things in AI. And if you've got domains that are, using your brand name, but actually being run by pills, porn, and poker sites, that's probably a bigger concern.
Andrew is founder and SEO consultant at Optimisey, and you can find him over at optimisey.com. Andrew, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Thanks, David. Always great to talk to you.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.